Ship Your Reptiles for the best customer service for handling your animals. Their team is quick and friendly to help you with any of your shipping needs. Go to shipyourreptiles.com for anything you need. If you need to ship reptiles, that's what their website's for, and you can ship your animals there, and it's very easy. Just do it, man. Hi, my name is Jeff Gaylord from JMG Reptile, and today I'm going to be talking about one of the most important things for new hognose owners to know, and that's how to remove a hognose if it mistakes you for food and starts chewing on you. Now, there's a lot of debates, sometimes online, about the venom content of Western hognose snakes. So right here I have a pretty hungry female hognose that's most likely going to be willing to try to eat me, and if not, I can get another one. The one thing that's important to know about them is their rear fangs are not hollow, so they actually have to chew to secrete their venom. And it takes a good while for them to chew on you to actually elicit a pretty severe reaction. So if you ever looked around and found any of these cases where there was these severe reactions, they're always in the case where somebody didn't know how to remove the hognose promptly. So that's what I'm going to show you here today. And we're going to get her, probably right now, to chew on me. And so you can even see that she's inspecting me and kind of looking at me more like I'm food. And that, now she's going to be an easy one to remove. She's not really biting down real hard. And so I'm going to bring her closer to the camera. And, you know, I've showed this technique to many people, and people, even their kids, can, you know, use this technique. It's actually very, very easy to use. And you're not going to hurt the snake. Now, Western hognose, the rostral scale, that big scale, what gives the hognose the name that they're known for, the hognose snake, that's backed by a really thick bone. So underneath this rostral scale is a very thick bone, and they use that for digging. And so it's just a very strong point of their body. So you don't have to worry about injuring them. And what I do is I just put my index finger there underneath the rostral scale, and I'll put like my thumb on this side of the head, middle finger here. I'll use my index finger and almost like a pop can tab, just slowly lift up. And she'll probably want to go back to chew on me again. Because again, it didn't really, like startle her, it didn't injure her. It's very safe to do. And the one thing is too, if you have a hognose that is kind of aggressive towards food, you can actually, if you remove them a few times, they generally kind of get it and start to give up on trying to actually chew on you. So I'm going to grab another hognose. Now, there's topics to, sometimes online talking about how dangerous is their venom. Their venom, if you remove them immediately, you don't even have to worry about it. And so that's why I'm making this video. So there shouldn't really be too much debate on how bad their venom is, because it actually takes a good while for them to administer it to you through the method of chewing, again, mistaking you for a prey item. Some people compare them to bee stings. It's not like a bee sting at all. Bee stings and wasp stings actually have very different venoms, and those venoms actually cause a large histamine reaction, which that's not exactly the case what's happening when hognose chew on you. And there's actually some old studies I read, Western terrestrial garter snakes, Thamnophis elegans, actually had more potent venom contents in their Duvernay's gland, and night snakes did as well, than the heterodon that they were studying. But again, you don't want to mess around with it. You don't want to let them chew on you and they get a big swollen hand. It's uncomfortable. So I'm going to show you the best method, in my opinion, to promptly remove them. Now, hognose snakes, the thing that they're most noted for is their nose. That rostral scale right there is backed by a very thick, sturdy bone. So you do not have to worry about hurting this hognose when removing them. And, I've showed this method to many people, even some hobbyists, their kids that are even around the ages of 9 or 10 that had hognose mistake them for food, immediately remove them. And again, if you immediately remove them, you can't get it venomated. All the while, I'm letting it happen. So let's remove this girl right now. So I'm just going to lift up on her rostral scale like this. I'm going to put my index finger right underneath the rostral scale, thumb on one side of her head, middle finger on the other side, like a pop can tab. That's where that method name comes from, because just like a pop can tab, you're just slowly removing them. And look, she'll go pretty much right back to probably chewing on me. Most of them do. Yep, there she goes. Because again, they're not really deterred by it that much. But if you keep removing them, usually they'll kind of get it. And she's got me in a tough spot. So that's actually a good one to show, to demonstrate again. And she's pretty easy to remove. Some are easier than others. We got another female here. This is another really food aggressive female. So I'm going to let her stake me for food. And again, anytime you see people get chewed on by hognose, get envenomated, it's always them mistaking you for food. This is not a defensive response. And here's another method that sometimes works pretty well. I massage their lower portion of their body. A lot of times that kind of distracts or kind of like more or less irritates them because that's a vulnerable part of their body. And if they're consuming a prey item and something's attacking them from behind, they should want to flee. And so this works for a decent amount, but not the more determined ones. She's a more determined one. It's not working. So we're just going to go right to the main method that always works. And just slowly remove her and unhook. And there you go. And she still wants to eat me big time. So the good thing to do is just kind of hold them behind the head there and then pick them up and place them back into their enclosure. And she's really, really into just wanting to eat. She thinks it's food time for sure. And you can use this technique too for if they accidentally grab themselves. There we go. And see, you can hold them pretty gently too while doing this, while firmly. And she's like really, again, this is one. I chose a very good female. She's extremely food aggressive. Okay, I'm back. Put on some gloves because I got a few minor wounds on my hands from those last few chewings. And again, I let them chew on me for, 10, 15 seconds or whatever it was. So I got a little bit of the itching, tingling feeling. I react to their venom probably more than the average person. But again, you just remove them right away and it's not a problem. I actually let them chew on me for a decent bit. Now again, this one's not going to want to chew on me. But again, here's the rostral scale. So if they do chew on you, you're going to just want to hold them right there. And this is what it kind of should look like from the underneath. And then you're just kind of pulling like this and unhooking. You're doing an unhooking method and you just kind of slowly wiggle them and remove them. As long as you do that firmly and calmly, it'll be very easy to do. And all you're doing is, again, is applying actually negative pressure. You're just matching the pressure they're applying to you and then slowly, overpowering them and then doing the unhooking method. And there's because I used to post about this years ago, and there'd be people like, well, with a ball python I do this, and I was like, it's a ball python. It's like if you have like a pet dog, somebody's not going to tell you what they do with their pet capuchin monkey or gorilla or whatever, as an analogy. So with ball pythons, though, if one grabs you in a feeding response or other species of snake grabs you, like a corn snake, some people will put, like things like alcohol or peroxide in their mouth, and I don't really suggest that because you're putting, chemicals in the snake's mouth. It can go into their glottis, their breathing tube. It can just flood their mouth with, things that could be potentially dangerous to them. And actually, for a very determined hognose, that isn't going to deter them. I've seen so many people, I've held my hognose underwater for 30 seconds. I did this, I did that. The best method where it's guaranteed to remove it right away is with that pop can tab method where you're putting your index finger on the rostral scale and just slowly lifting up and overpowering them. And then just manually removing them and then taking them and placing them back into their enclosure. And if they're still hungry, just make sure to kind of hang on to them, hold behind their head so they don't grab you again. Or if hopefully you have a mouse laying around at that given time, put the mouse right into the snake's mouth and let it eat that. And another thing I wanted to cover about things that people really need to know about for first-time hognose ownership is using mite sprays, anti or prevenamite kind of chemicals. Those can be very dangerous to hognose, especially things like prevenamite, black knight. They'll actually kill hognose if you use them in the enclosure with hognose or severely mess them up and cause long-lasting neurological effects. And even using them near hognose can cause lasting neurological effects or even potentially kill them. So for mite prevention, 7 dust is really good as far as putting around the rack systems or around the floor or bottom or wherever your enclosure is resting. Because if mites walk through 7 dust, they will die. Now, I don't suggest putting 7 dust in the actual enclosure, but you can use things like actually diluted Nix in water solution to wash your hognose. And while Nix isn't the most powerful, it does kind of have an effect on the mites. And with the Nix, you just want to kind of use it. Usually they have it in the little bottles, shampoo bottles. You mix that with 1 gallon of water and make a solution with that. And you can kind of bathe the hognose with it. and then let them sit and dry with it, and then rinse them off like 5-6 hours later. That is not hazardous to hognose snakes. And you can also use things like some people will use mineral oil to put on their snakes that can smother it. One thing I would suggest is washing your hognose really well with soapy water, and then even kind of giving like a massaging motion where you're going to kind of get those scales to flex and get mites that are hiding up underneath the scales. And I'd use that method too if you're going to use this soapy Nix solution to wash them down with. And then make sure to wash the enclosure, water bowls, and edges of things really well where mites might lay their eggs. And that's for preventing mites. Typically, you're not seeing mites on hognose that often, especially hognose breeders. I don't think I've ever actually gotten mites from another hognose breeder ever in my life. Most hognose breeders are pretty good about it. Hognose are very susceptible to, the babies are very susceptible to anemia and just having issues from mites and everything. So it's definitely something you don't want on your hognose snakes. And if you do find mites on the hognose snakes, typically they're going to want to go towards the cloaca area, the vent, or around the edges of the mouth, or kind of by the neck, and anywhere where they can get underneath scales. But hognose have pretty coarse, keeled scales, and they kind of have a hard time living on hognose snakes opposed to other species, it seems. All right, and so that's kind of concludes the two top things I think people should know firsthand before getting into hognose snakes, and that's if they already know like basic care and stuff like that. But those are just very important things that a lot of people don't know about. So they end up getting chewed on, and they don't know how to remove the hognose right away. Their hand puffs up, and then sometimes they don't remove their rings, and then they're unable to get their ring off, and then you're going to have to cut the ring off in some of those cases. And then also, I just definitely want people to be aware that you have to be very careful with mite sprays, pest strips, or anything like that around hognose snakes. I'm not sure how bad different pest strips are around hognose snakes, but I wouldn't want to even test it. So thanks for joining in, and if you have any questions or anything you think I should have added to the video, or a topic I didn't quite cover when it comes to both of those topics, removing a hognose snake, hognose venom contents, and how dangerous they are, anything that covers like in those kind of categories, just let me know. Again, hognose are not dangerous at all, especially if you remove them right away. If you remove them right away, you won't even have a chance to react to the venom because they don't even have time to deliver it because they have to chew and able to deliver it. Thank you, everybody. Bye.